Hey guys, welcome back to another video of Marvel Contest of Champions. Today we're going to be taking a look at the stats and abilities of the newest character to come to the contest, Squirrel Girl. But before we dive into things, I just want to say if you do enjoy this video, make sure to give the video a thumbs up, and also please consider sharing this video with your buddies, with your alliance mates, friends, anybody that you think would be interested in this video. I would greatly appreciate it, as it would help me grow my channel and reach a larger audience. So again, I would greatly appreciate it if you did share the video. But with that out of the way, let's dive right into it. Now, Squirrel Girl is the very first champion to be joining the contest in 2020. She is a skill class character, and first thing I want to talk about when it comes to this character is something that is quite common with a lot of a lot of skill champions. Pardon me, I just spoiled what I was going to say right there. But one thing I do notice is common with a lot of skill champions is that bleed is a very big thing with this character. Now, for Squirrel Girl in particular, all of her medium attacks will inflict a bleed debuff on the opponent, and if that medium attack does critical, it will inflict a critical bleed debuff, pardon me, on your opponent, which can deal a crazy amount of damage, and it's pretty easy, at least it seems pretty easy so far, to be able to stack these bleeds up pretty quickly. I almost want to compare her similar to like Black Panther in that they seem to be popping up a lot. They do only last for about 6 seconds, which isn't very long. But they do inflict a decent amount of damage, and especially when you get a lot of them going, you can start taking off a lot of damage from your opponent very, very quickly. And there are other abilities as well that will inflict bleed debuffs, some of the special attacks as well. So just again, you can build these up so very, very fast. But then these bleed debuffs are also very important for another ability of hers, something I will talk about just in a little bit here. But there are a couple other things I want to get to before we get to that. The next thing I want to talk about for Squirrel Girl is the importance of your combo meter. Now, we have had champions in the past that are like this as well. I believe it was Guillotine 2099. I believe it was one of her pre-fight abilities did start you off with 100 hits in your combo meter, and that would lead to, or that would help you with other abilities of hers. Now, I might be incorrect on that being Guillotine 2099, but I believe it was her. If not, correct me in the comments below. But there is something very similar with Squirrel Girl in this, in that she does start off the fight with 40 hits in her combo meter, and the importance of this is that these hits can be consumed to activate different abilities, and also to help you build up, because combo hits are so important with this character, other attacks will add hits onto your combo meter. Now, I forget the exact details of it, but there are some of her special attacks will add like 10 hits or 20 hits or something along the lines of that. And then with just her regular hits as well, I forget there was a specific like circumstance had to be met, but if just your basic hits could add an extra hit onto your combo meter, so instead of just the regular 1 hit, you would get 2 hits. At least that's the way I understand it. Again, there were certain circumstances that had to be met in order for this to happen. I can't remember them off the top of my head. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the character anymore from the content creator program, so I can't double check that at the moment. But yeah, there are multiple ways that you can build up your combo meter to be like, I was getting up to like over 100 hits really, really fast, and that's just in like a 30-second fight. So you can build it up very, very quickly. And again, as I mentioned, you can consume these combo hits to activate different abilities, which are tied into the bleed, the importance of the bleed that I mentioned earlier. Again, I'm going to talk about that later. That's the big thing about the character that I really want to talk about. So I will talk about that in a second. I realize now I probably should have ordered these a little bit differently in my notes here, but we're just going to roll on with it. The last thing I want to talk about before we get on to that last major point is one of her specific synergies. This is a synergy that goes along with Sentinel, in that when you have Sentinel on your team and you're fighting with Squirrel Girl, anytime you're fighting against robot opponents, all of Squirrel Girl's bleed debuffs will be exchanged for shock debuffs. Now, I think this is a really, really cool feature. I don't know if any other champions have this ability. I can't recall any off the top of my head, but this is really good. So this might mean that Squirrel Girl could be a really great opponent for robot abilities. So like Ultron, Vision, those are the big ones that come to mind off the top of my head. So those guys are always just kind of a pain in the butt, pardon me, to deal with. So could be really great uses for her. Now, I do need to clarify, this ability does not work for bleed immune champions. This is specifically robot opponents. Bleed immune, it won't affect those. So characters like Iceman, who are bleed immune, this will not affect her. He will still be immune to Squirrel Girl's attacks. That does not mean she'll start inflicting shock on them. It is only for robot opponents. I gotta emphasize that is where this ability lies. So, again, could be a really great option for characters, again, like Ultron, Vision, Age of Ultron, and I'm absolutely blanking on what other robot opponents there will be, but you know what I mean. Any sort of android or anything like that, it will help with that. So I think that's a really cool synergy, especially if you know, like, the boss of, like, a certain quest is going to be a robot character. Squirrel Girl could be a very good option for you, and just having Sentinel on your team, just in general, could be a very good champion as well. Of course, Sentinel, duh, now I'm talking about it. Sentinel would be another character that Squirrel Girl could be a good option for. I can't believe I was saying Sentinel that entire time, and it didn't click. That is... yeah, my brain is in places. But, yeah, that is... all out of her synergies, the other two are... they're alright. I'm not super crazy about them. This is just the one that stood out to me as a very interesting synergy, so I thought I would talk about that one. But, the very last thing I wanted to talk about here is this thing that I've been mentioning that involves bleed and your combo hits. So there is Tippy-Toe. Tippy-Toe is the name of the squirrel that is alongside Squirrel Girl there, and this all involves around Tippy-Toe and the abilities that come along with them. Now, part of this, how this ability works, at least the way that I understand it, is that when either a champion is knocked down, either your character, or rather, particularly Squirrel Girl, or your opponent, Tippy-Toe will transfer who he or she, I can't remember if it's a he or a she, but anyway, who they are attached to. So they will attach themselves to either Squirrel Girl or your opponent, and will apply different effects depending on which one it's on. Now, just to go through all of the details here. Now, when Tippy-Toe is on Squirrel Girl, what this will cause is that all non-damaging debuffs will be purified, so you'll lose any of those. Any ones that do cause damage, though, of course, will not be taken away. But any heal block, those types of things, those abilities like that don't actually cause damage will be taken away. Of course, non-damaging debuffs are pretty self-explanatory, but just to go into that as well. But then also, this will boost your block proficiency as well, or rather, Tippy-Toe on Squirrel Girl will boost your block proficiency. Now, it's a specific value, and that will vary, of course, depending on how strong your Squirrel Girl is, so I won't say exactly what that value is. But the part that is more interesting, at least to me, is when Tippy-Toe is on the opponent. Now, there are a couple different things that this will do, but there's like 3 different things that could happen depending on the circumstances, but there are 2 in particular that I want to talk about. Now, when Tippy-Toe is on the opponent, this will inflict a injury debuff. And what this does is that whenever you hit an opponent who has an injury debuff on them, this will bypass 100% of their physical resistance. So each character kind of has a little bit of resistance, meaning that any punches will be weakened by a little bit, but this will cause you to be able to bypass all of that, doing full damage on the opponent, which I think is really great. But this, I believe, ties in with another part of it. So when Tippy-Toe is on the opponent, this is where consuming those combo hits will come in. You can consume either 30 or 40 hits to get different abilities. Now, the one I want to focus on is the one that consumes 40 hits. Now, when you consume 40 combo hits, you will inflict instant bleed, which will deal a burst of almost 800 damage. Or at least this was for the 4-star version, I should say. For my 4-star version that I had, this will deal a burst of almost 800 direct damage for every bleed debuff on the opponent. Now, that exact value will vary depending on which version of Squirrel Girl you have, how leveled up they are, etc. But basically, yeah, this will deal a burst of damage, of direct damage, for every bleed debuff available on the opponent. Now, I had one fight in particular that was, if I'm reading into this right and I'm looking back at the footage correctly, that was a very good example of this. This was against a Hulkbuster. Now this happened after I did a special 3 attack when Hulkbuster got knocked down after the animation went through. This did happen. This ability activated, and he lost so much health. I believe it was somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 damage that this caused. Now, I might be looking at the footage incorrectly. You make your own judgments, but I believe this was the ability that was being activated because the damage from the actual special attack 3 that did occur, but then on top of that there was an extra chunk of damage, and I believe, at least from the percentage his percentage of health that Hulkbuster had left, I believe it did something like 20 some odd, a little over 20% of Hulkbuster's health was taken away from this ability, which shocked me at first. I was like, holy smokes, what happened? It kind of caught me off guard, and it kind of distracted me a little bit in the fight trying to figure out what that was. But yeah, it does a crazy amount of damage, and I had other fights as well that at the very end of the fight this activated and took an amount of damage, and my opponent just died in front of me, and I'm like, what happened? I was confused at first because I didn't read through her abilities, but then when I went through afterwards and then did other fights after that, it was like, oh, that's what's happening. So this can definitely do a crazy amount of damage, because I believe, looking back at the footage, I believe it had something like 5 or 6 bleeds. We're currently active on Hulkbuster. That times almost 800 damage, got out a lot of put out a lot of damage on Hulkbuster is what I'm trying to say here. But then I do also believe that the injury debuff did have an effect on this as well, because this was put on as direct damage and not bleed damage. I believe this does also bypass that 100% physical resistance, so I believe there was that little extra bit of damage because Hulkbuster wasn't resisting it at all. I might be incorrect on that. Again, I say this all the time, I'm not an expert on the game, I'm a very casual player, but I do love this game a lot, so, and I have played it a lot, I guess, so I might be not 100% correct on what I'm saying here, so do take it with a grain of salt, but from what I'm reading and from what I've seen, that is how I understand it. So yeah, this one, when Tippy-Toe is on the opponent and you consume those 40 combo hits, you can definitely do a lot of damage, especially considering how fast and how many bleed debuffs you can get on your opponent. Again, that can just start stacking so quickly and do a crazy amount of damage. So I think Squirrel Girl has a lot of potential. When she doesn't have her combo meter, I have noticed she is a little on the weaker side, which had me worried for the first couple of fights that I was going in there when I didn't understand what was going on. When I lost my combo meter, I'm like, why am I doing suddenly just like tapping the opponent? So it is a little, I guess, you have to be very careful when you're fighting her. You have to try to keep and build up your combo meter is a very big part of this character, but yeah, just overall she does have a lot of potential, and I am actually quite excited for her. For Squirrel Girl the character, I'm not super excited for, but for Squirrel Girl the champion, I am very excited for, and definitely would like to add her to my roster. But yeah, I think that's about all that I had to go through. That's the last of my notes that I have here, so I believe that is going to wrap it up. So I'm just going to say thank you all so very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to give the video a thumbs up, and while you're down there, do also feel free to subscribe to the channel. I feel like this kind of stuff, I got lots of it coming out all the time, so again, feel free to subscribe. Social media and whatnot, links are down in the description below, so go check me out there. Twitter is the big one. I do post a lot on Twitter, so feel free to follow me over there, and also let me know what your thoughts are of Squirrel Girl in the comments below. I would love to hear about it, and also check out the question that I'll be posting in the description there. I'm going to try to do this as a new thing where I post a question down in the description just to get a little more interaction with you guys, so feel free to check that out. I don't know what the question will be. I haven't thought of it as I'm recording this, but I'll have something out there, so again, check all that out while you're down there. But yeah, I'm rambling, so I'm just gonna say once again, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.